Here we go. Okay. All right, we are module 14. That means after this, we will have one more session and then we'll be done. The picture of the week. All right, so this chapter will focus on business continuity. All businesses, regardless of their size, must have a strategic plan to provide alternative modes of operation when an interruption could result in significant loss to the enterprise. A business continuity plan consists of recovery planning, crisis management and communication, and disaster recovery. These are all very important things for the business. I have here displayed for you a business impact analysis, or BIA. It identifies business functions and quantifies the impact of a loss on these functions may have on business operations. These impacts range from property, finance, safety, reputation, and even life. The BIA is supposed to help you in determining the mission essential function of the company, identify the critical systems, and any single point of failure for a business. The BIA can also contain privacy impact assessment and privacy threshold assessments. You are basically creating a document that will list all the possible ways that the business could potentially suffer, and you list them in order of critical to no impact, so you know how to strategically place your business in order to minimize those impacts. A disaster recovery plan is a comprehensive plan that involves restoring the IT functions and services to their former state. This should be a written document that should be updated and tested periodically to ensure its success when the time comes. Because it is not a if the time comes. It is always a when. And your disaster recovery could be everything from a fire to an insider to bugs to a power outage to a tornado to a meteor falling from the sky. What are you gonna do if a meteor falls down of the sky and lands on the building of your company? The purpose and scope of a disaster recovery plan has an introduction, objectives and constraints, assumptions, incidents requiring action, contingencies, physical safeguards, types of computer service disruptions, and insurance considerations. It should have a recovery team. In the organization, there should be a disaster recovery team, their headquarters, who is the coordinator, the team leaders, and their responsibilities. It should have a section on preparing for a disaster, the risks in physical, digital, environmental, internal, external, and their safeguards. It should have emergency procedures, how the team forms, the lists of all the vendors, the use of alternate sites, and off-site storage. It should also have restoration procedures. How will you restore your central facilities? How will you restore systems and operations? What will be the scope of the central site, of the network communications, of the client computer recovery? All of these things have to be thought out. All of these things have to be planned and written and tested periodically. Other common topics that you'll find in a DR plan are the order of restoration. Because are you going to really restore a workstation first? Or are you going to restore your backbone network? Or are you going to restore your VMware server first? What is the order of restoration? Alternative business practices. For example, we live in California. One of the things that we have to plan is for earthquakes. What happens if an earthquake happens and brings your building down? Where's your alternate site? Nevada? Chicago? New York? Alternative processing sites and failover. Testing exercises will show the effectiveness of the plan, either in tabletop exercises, dry runs, or other means. However you test it, remember that you must continually test, continually update your disaster recovery plan. It is not in any way, shape, or form a set and forget. Fault tolerance is one way to be able to stay on regardless of an issue like a power outage or a network outage. With a fault tolerance, we can do, for example, multiple servers, because servers play a vital role in network infrastructure. The loss of a single one could have significant impact. One way to minimize the risk is by having spare parts on a second server or an identical second server to the first, or have a series of servers grouped together in a cluster so that if a single unit fails, the entire system will continue to operate transparent to the users. In this example here, I have two server clusters, server 1 and server 2. If the second box in server 1 dies, nobody's gonna know. They're all interconnected. If all of server 1 cluster goes down, server 2 can take the load and continue operating. This is what is fault tolerance. Now that's just in overall systems. We can also talk about RAID. the redundant array of independent disks. All storage drives, regardless of their type, whether SSD, M2, or spinning drive, all storage drives have a mean time between failures, MTBF. By the way, this is something that does show up on the test. The mean time between failures. The amount of time until a component fails cannot be repaired and must be replaced. Calculating this will help the business estimate how much it will spend in storage and how often drives will fail. RAID will provide a means to ensure data is safe and accessible when a drive fails. Because again, it is not if, it is when. Here is a breakdown of the major RAID levels and their pros and cons. So you have, for example, just a bunch of disks, JBOD. You have striping, which is RAID 0. You're just using all of the disks across. There is no there's no help. If a drive dies, the data within that drive dies. But it is high performance. You have RAID 1, which is a mirror. So whatever is on one drive will be written to another. If a drive dies, you still have all your data. You have RAID 5, where you have striping and parity. So if one drive dies, all the data is still fine. You replace that drive, the other 4 drives will repair the disks. You need a minimum of 3. With RAID 5, you tend to use 5 disks. With RAID 6, it's just add another drive. RAID 10, which is 1 and 0, you have striping and mirroring requiring 4 drives. So 2 drives are acting as a stripe, and then 2 act as a mirror. We don't typically use RAID 2 through 4 and 6 through 9. There are more complicated, like RAID 50 and RAID 60, and it goes on out from there. Just so you have a basic understanding of RAID. Other fault tolerance through redundancy methods can be networks. Just as servers are important, the devices that connect our network need redundancy, either spare devices or separate connections should one fail. For example, load balancers having 2 internet connections from different vendors, or having multiple switches interconnected so that if one switch goes down, another switch can take over. Power. Maintaining electrical power is essential when planning redundancy. If you forgot, our entire job depends on electricity. If there is no electricity, we do not have a job. So ensuring that the power is always there will ensure that we have a job. Kind of important. So installing uninterruptible power supplies or even generators will help when there is an interruption in the primary source. UPSs can provide power for a couple minutes, depending on their load. You could use a generator powered by like diesel, natural gas, or propane to continue operations for extended periods of time. Again, this all depends on your business, all depends on the critical needs that you may need to buy a generator for your building, or you just need a battery UPS that you can get at like Best Buy or Staples. Recovery sites. Entire sites also need to be planned out should something happen to the primary site, like a fire, flood, earthquake, meteor, gremlins. A hot site is essentially a duplicate of the production site and has all the equipment needed for an organization to continue running, including office space, furniture, computers, backup, internet for immediate use. This is the most expensive because you have to have everything up and running and basically have a carbon copy of the primary site. A warm site has all the equipment installed but doesn't have active internet or telecom facilities and doesn't have current backups of data. This is a cheaper alternative to hot and can be ready within half a day or more. A cold site could provide office space, but there's no equipment, no furniture, or anything else that's ready. Data backup. Knowing your recovery point objective and your recovery time objective will help in calculating when backups should be performed. Those are two terms that I have highlighted in the lecture notes that do show up on the test. We have full backup. This is the basic backup option in which all the selected files and folders are backed up. Multiple full backups cause huge resource utilization because it's a complete backup. This is the fastest and simplest backup to restore data back. This approach is good for small amounts of data. Incremental backups, as shown here, only data is modified after a previous backup is archived. This backup is very fast as it only copies modified files, but while restoring, it's quite slow as all the incremental backups need to be checked for restoring only the latest data. This approach is good for large amount of files as it will back them up quickly and take lesser space as compared to multiple full backups. A differential backup includes archiving of modified files like an incremental. It shortens restore time compared to incremental backup. Doing many differential backups will consume huge amount of space that may exceed a basic full backup size. You also have a mirror backup. It's a live sync of the data, also known as a hot backup. In this process, data is stored in sync on multiple locations at the same time. Lastly, there's offsite backups. Backups are no good if they're kept in the primary location all the time. Backups should be saved at a different location, like the cloud, a bank storage, or other safe location. Because should your primary site go down in flames, in rubble, in whatever, and your backups were there too, you're stuck with nothing. So make sure that however you're backing up to another location. I have two videos about environmental control. This first one is about fire suppression, which again is a thing. Servers do catch fire. That is not out of the ordinary. An internal electrical fire is a risk that you must prevent and mitigate. It is recommended to have a stationary fire suppression system. This is just one of many that I found on YouTube to demonstrate.
The heart of an organization beats not in an office, but here in the data center. Thousands of servers processing vital information for all your accounts, storing all your essential business data. These servers are designed for punishing 24/7 operations, and they demand the most robust fire protection solutions available. The sprinkler systems required by building codes are designed to protect structures and people, not data center equipment. Protecting critical infrastructure, such as a data center, takes a KIDA fire detection and suppression system. KIDA systems detect the earliest stages of a fire, then extinguish it in seconds by discharging a clean suppression agent. That's safer for humans and the environment, without the water damage caused by sprinklers. To demonstrate the difference, we've replicated a data center in this fire testing facility. Typically, a data center fire would start inside one of these server cabinets. This type of enclosed fire is tough to extinguish using sprinklers alone, but it's an ideal situation for clean agent fire suppression systems. The room is equipped with KIDA air sampling and spot smoke sensors, plus the clean agent fire suppression system and 9 water sprinklers. When everything is ready, the clean agent test is run first. Engineers ignite sheets of ABS plastic in an empty server cabinet. The air sampling and spot smoke sensors alert the system. And then, discharge. The Novec 1230 suppression agent floods the room and penetrates the burning enclosure where it extinguishes the fire in less than 20 seconds. The water sprinkler test begins the same way, but nearly 4 minutes elapse before the first sprinkler head discharges. 7 minutes later, the fire is still burning. 15 minutes after ignition, a firefighter enters the test chamber and puts out the fire with a portable fire CO2 fire extinguisher. The sprinklers did their job preventing the fire from involving the entire room. But the server equipment, walls, and ceiling are all water damaged. The results of the KIDA clean agent system test are dramatically different. Even though the cabinet temperature reached 230 degrees Fahrenheit before the agent discharged, the room and servers show virtually no sign of damage. From the perspective of IT operations and data security, it's as if the fire in the data center never happened.
Again, this is just one of many. Here's one for electromagnetic disruption protection. All electrical devices emit electromagnetic fields, which can interfere with either other devices or can be captured by attackers. To reduce the threat of an electromagnetic pulse and or an attacker listening to the emissions, a Faraday cage can be installed. Cool. Digital forensics and incident response. This is actually the whole subject of CIS 77, which happens in the spring every year. A incident response plan is a set of written instructions for reacting to a security incident. A typical IR plan consists of 6 steps: preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. As with disaster recovery plans, this should be tested and updated to ensure everything and everyone is ready for an incident. Digital forensics has a similar step to standard forensics, and is much more invasive than incident response. Digital forensic steps are securing the crime scene, which is performing damage control, neutralizing the suspected perpetrator, reporting the incidents to authorities, quarantining electronic equipment, preserving the evidence, capturing system images, network traffic, and other relevant information, then making mirror copies to be used for analysis, establishing chain of custody, documenting all devices and personnel who handle the evidence for what length of time, examining the evidence, searching the mirrored image for clues that relate to the incident, like deleted files, data transferred, etc., and enabling recovering from the event and building lessons learned. The test doesn't so much dive deep into that, but knowing the difference between digital forensics, incident response, and the basic of the two plans shows up on the test. Are there any questions? Okay. Looks like there's no questions for me, so I'll stop this recording. And I'll make a new recording. For the assignment. Your assignment this week will be to install Autopsy into a Windows VM, ideally, although you can install it into Linux. It has been easier to install into Windows. Just go under download and then download 64-bit. It is free. You don't have to pay for it. Just go ahead and download and install it, ideally into a Windows VM, and then download this zip file. This is mod14.zip. You'll need the program Autopsy, and you'll need the zip file in the virtual machine where Autopsy is installed to solve the questions that are in this quiz. Within that zip file are a couple of files, nothing too crazy. You'll have one DD image, a .dd file, and you'll have 3 log files. The 3 log files are not your standard log files that you would get out of, let's say, like Windows or Linux. These log files are actually files that you can open in Wireshark. So when you get that, that zip file and you open it, remember that you will find a DD file. That DD file you can import into Autopsy. And there are 3 log files there that can be opened in Wireshark. Together, using Wireshark and Autopsy primarily, you'll answer the questions that are in this quiz. If for whatever reason you run out of time and you run out of attempts, just let me know. I have no problem increasing the attempts or increasing the time or both to give you plenty of time to go through using the Autopsy tool to find the answers to the questions. To me, it's not about how fast you can solve it or how many attempts it took you to solve it. It's more of, can you find it? Digital forensics is a lot about that, a lot about looking at evidence and spending time basically going hunting, trying to find information. So again, if you run out of time and attempts, just let me know. I have no problem increasing it for you. And if you get stuck in Autopsy, ask away in Discord. That's why it's there. That's why we have it. And as always, you are welcome to work together because this class isn't built to be done on your own. Are there any questions about the lab? Awesome. Then if there are no questions, I will stop the stream and the recording.